Hello, I'm Deputy Superintendent Gwendolyn J. Cook. Sadly, in the past few years, a number of disasters have caused us to place emergency preparedness high on our list of educational priorities. However, with guidance from the U.S. Department of Education and Homeland Security, we have developed a wonderful emergency operation plan to ensure that we are ready in case of an emergency. Being prepared is a priority. Our mission is to ensure that all of our students are safe, all of our adults are safe, and that we protect the lives of all of those who enter schools within the Kansas City, Missouri School District.
You may hear about emergencies, but how often are we prepared?
It's unfortunate that we had to have 9/11, but some good things have grown out of that.
We have moved to a new level of preparedness that we didn't have before.
We are ready.
Clear, decisive emergency management and response at all levels can literally mean the difference between chaos and calm, life and death. Lessons of the September 11th terrorist attacks, Columbine and Minnesota school shootings, and Hurricane Katrina clearly demonstrate the necessity of being prepared. Although the chances of an emergency of this magnitude occurring in our schools are slim, it remains vital to have a well-organized plan that protects the lives of our most valuable resource, our children. Designed in conjunction with the Kansas City Emergency Operations Center, the Fire Department, Police Department, and Massed Ambulance Service, the Kansas City, Missouri School District Emergency Operations Plan mirrors in many ways Kansas City's own broader emergency plan, which ultimately places everyone on the same page when minutes count.
Office of Emergency Management, DA speaking.
This is the place that emergency workers come during large-scale emergencies and disasters to coordinate the city's response. The plans done by the school board to be most effective need to integrate with the city's local emergency operations plan. And this project that they're undertaking does that. It makes emergency operations more predictable and more effective during an emergency or a disaster.
The things about the Kansas City, Missouri School District plan that make them leading edge, that was built on existing federal guidelines, existing state guidelines, and existing city models for emergency management. School districts hadn't done that in the past. They developed their own kind of unique plan, and it wasn't tied in with other plans. One of the first things we did was go to the city government and ask them what had they done for hazard analysis and what's occurred here in terms of hazards, what the likelihood of those hazards recurring, what the level of damage resulting from those hazards was, and how they prioritized the hazards as they saw them that needed to be addressed in their plans.
But the district plan doesn't simply mimic the broader city plan. It takes a progressive step forward. Through professional training, it allows staff the ability to initiate immediate action internally, never losing precious time waiting for assistance. Its mission is based upon 4 primary objectives. Mitigation, or the efforts to reduce the vulnerability of students, staff, and property to any type of disaster before it happens. Preparedness, the level at which one is trained and ready for a disaster. Response, how an actual disaster is handled or managed. And recovery, getting school operations back to normal following an emergency.
Bring the students back in. It is a plan that's also easy for us to implement because it is in writing. All staff members have been trained. We have gone through numerous trainings with the students, and so therefore our comfort level is much higher than it would have been had we had no plan in place.
As you are about to learn, the goal of the district emergency plan is to be ready, to be prepared to effectively manage any threat. It provides specific prevention, preparation, and recovery instructions. Guidelines, however, will not substitute for proper training and practice, because ultimately the plan must come off the pages of the manual and work in a real crisis situation.
Fire drills, we run one a month. We time the drill, we assess the performance of the individuals, the performance of the school as a total. We needed to ensure that a proficiency was gained and executed.
We have thought through the processes of how to get students out of the buildings. The police department, they will have on their computers in their cars the plans of our schools, where they're going to arrive, where the command post is going to be, and how the communications will go, where the officers will be placed. The students have a feeling of where they're going to go. The teachers know where they're going to go, and our response teams know where to go.
Make sure that everyone is cleared out.
The other drills were necessitated by the Columbine situation, and because we are in an area that has a history of tornadoes, we are required to run 2 tornado drills per year. School personnel and the kids are drilled on both evacuating them from the building and securing them within the building if something occurs. Practice makes perfect. It is a cliche, but it's a reality. Anything you do not practice, you do not do well.
At nearby Podax.
In any type of disaster situation where you have a multiple section of the city involved, a school should be prepared to be on its own for a minimum of 3 hours. In some cases, it is assumed that it may be as much as 72 hours that it may take to get to some areas of the city.
At the ground level of emergency planning is what goes on in the classroom. And what we wanted to make sure was that, number one, it was kind of simple and straightforward, easy for teachers to get on top of without spending a lot of extra time, but also that it was uniform across the district with regard to the emergency processes in place. 2 parts of that. One is a standard operating guideline that was approved for all classroom teachers throughout the city on how to respond to these different hazards they face. Number 2, that no classroom should be operating in isolation. So every classroom throughout the Kansas City School District is buddied with at least one other classroom so that they're working together. 2 adults or 3 adults working with a body of students, allowing an adult to lead, an adult to trail, and to make sure that nobody gets lost in the process.
The Emergency Standard Operating Guide has a second very important function. It allows teachers to quickly communicate whether all students are accounted for. The green side signals all students are present and uninjured. Red signals someone is missing or injured.
This process has assisted us to know that we can protect the lives of 300 people or 1,100 people within a short period of time.
Bunch of kids, you, and a lot of people hurt. So what do?
We have also thought very comprehensively about the needs that people have after trauma.
Kids are easily traumatized. So we decided to develop a separate mental health piece. We worked with the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, and they participated with us in helping to draft that particular set of instructions in the plan. Other parts of the country can turn to the Kansas City School District and see those well-thought-out procedures that are in place there. One of the very important parts of any school emergency management plan is how to reunite students and parents.
For a school this size, potentially you'd have several hundred parents join in a very short period of time. You'd need a lot of report points.
Parents can anticipate when they come to a Kansas City school to pick up their child in an emergency circumstance that they're going to go to some report point, and separate from that is going to be where those students are held. They'll confirm their identity and who they're there to pick up. Somebody will go get that child and they'll sign for the child. That's a double-gated system. And that separation becomes the way that we maintain accountability for kids and that we control the release of those students.
Search, Rescue, and Hazmat Team,
and make a decision.
First aid.
Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Security.
Those kinds.
Mental health. Reunification team. Utility. And communications.
7 emergency response teams were established utilizing school district staff, people who want to create a safe, secure environment for the students they care for every day.
Make sure I have it.
Realizing that ongoing training and practice are fundamental for proper execution and response during an emergency, teams are trained by professional emergency responder organizations in accordance with their procedures.
You have to have one triage officer.
In the area of first aid, we had paramedics.
Brings your patients out across here to your triage officer.
In addition to dealing with the things that happen inside the school, you're going to have things happen outside the school too.
In the area of security, we had police, law enforcement, and security experts to provide that training.
By a little thin door. Okay? That confinement works.
Search and rescue, we utilize the fire department who would be suited for rescuing persons.
Work in a buddy system.
We knew that in any emergencies you're going to have lost persons, injured persons, persons needing to be protected.
You might have the need to go in and retrieve children from some lightly damaged parts of your building. Without the fire department being there, we've got to have our own internal capability. We identify within each school some staff members to be part of a search and rescue team. And they received a federal training program called CERT, Community Emergency Response Team Training, that enables them to do that function, that very important job, safely. When a search and rescue team enters a facility, they've got a plan as to how they're going to progress. And it's a system that everybody else knows too. One of the things they do is every time they enter a new room, they're going to put a slash mark with tape next to the door as they're entering it. That means if you see a slash mark, you know that a search team is still in that room.
Anyone in here? We gotta move.
Anyone in here?
When they come out of the room, put in another slash mark to formulate an X. When you see an X up there, you know that that's a room that's already been searched, and the search team's gone on to a new space.
My biggest surprise with this project is how involved all employees want to be in a process that affects school safety. The nurses are just as committed as are the guidance counselors, as are the school security officers, as are the vice principals, as are the individual teachers in the classroom.
I volunteered because I think it's important to be prepared for an emergency. Parents can feel safe that their kids are taken care of, and it's our responsibility to ensure their safety.
Okay, Miles. Yeah.
I saved a 6th grader by using my tools of CPR and first aid.
She's going to be over there.
I know I'm ready.
When you go up the steps...
District emergency response teams do not take the place of professional emergency responder organizations. They are trained merely as a first line of defense. Professional responders take over immediately upon arrival.
Great plans without proper execution are simply words on paper. Leadership of the district plan functions on 2 levels. The district command system, activated directly from the central office in area-wide emergencies involving multiple schools, and the incident command system, initiated at the school level in isolated emergency situations.
In a district-wide emergency, key people come together and make decisions. Among those key people are the superintendent, the deputy, the head of security, the public information officer, and other persons who might be designated.
You represent the leadership, the hierarchy of the school district where...
We each have our roles and our functions, and we collaborate with the command center from the police department, health and security, so there's a local hospital, and then of course a fire department.
In the event the primary designee for a key position is unable to perform their assigned duty, one of 2 alternates are prepared to assume that responsibility.
There are 3 people who can ensure that the steps and the actions and the strategies that need to take place will take place. Because, you know, at any point in time, a person might be absent, so who takes over? And of course, that's replicated at the school level with the principal being the chief commander.
Yes, I am. Good morning. How are you?
In terms of communications within that command structure, we have what is called a bypass line. That is a secondary phone line not tied to our regular phone system, which is more reliable in an emergency situation. Additionally, we will dispatch a security officer to the school who will act as a communicator with the district command center.
It is important for the public information officer, also known as a PIO, to be part of the communication and the discussion that's going on at the top, making sure that we have accurate information and disseminate that out in a fast and timely manner. Parents can be informed through a phone master. This is a system that actually dials and calls the households of parents. Schools have that capability. That can also be done on a district-wide level. Then the other example of getting information out to parents would be through the media, either through radio or television. We can ask them to assist us with getting the message out.
Tabletop exercises are a critical component of the command structure because even the best laid plan cannot anticipate the inevitable complexity of an actual emergency.
The tabletop exercises are important. The leadership and the top administration, they've been going through scenarios of an incident.
There is the key assumption.
And it puts them into living and thinking through decision-making about an emergency. That tabletop exercise helps our leadership gain the practice, like you do in a school drill, of what to do.
We need to all feel pretty comfortable that we could get by for 3 hours.
Realizing that every school and every situation is unique, schools are encouraged to adapt the plan to reflect their own needs and dynamic environment, and to take ownership of their individual plan.
Yes, there are differences in schools because there's differences in structures of schools, different compositions of students, but within those differences, we are uniform.
Each school had to develop an emergency preparedness handbook, and it had to be in concert with the district emergency handbook. Each school had to include a diagram of the school, and something as minute as the gas cutoff line had to be noted in those plans. We would look for very specific kinds of things to ensure that safety would remain the priority.
The Kansas City, Missouri School District Emergency Operations Plan was created with the safety of students and staff in mind. But it cannot be successful without our commitment to fully understand the role we play in keeping each and every one of our students out of harm's way. It's how we, the Kansas City, Missouri School District, can say with confidence, when disaster strikes, we're ready.
I think at this point in time we're ready, to the degree that we can be ready.
We are ready. We will constantly have to retrain because people leave and new people come on. We have to maintain that level of awareness and readiness. If I had a child in the school district, I would want to know, if there's an emergency, do I feel competent and comfortable that my child's safety is being taken care of? That's what this plan helps us to feel and what it gives to our community, and that's terribly important.
I do feel a whole lot better that they are looking at the emergency response system. I would like for my child's teacher to be trained in what to do. I'm all for it.
By the school district putting this program in place, it shows your parents as well as your students that you do care about them, even your staff. It was very important for me as a parent to know that this is taking place at my child's school.
The times in which we spend talking about what it is that we are to do in an emergency situation certainly pays off in the end when we do have that real-life emergency.
We are ready, we think, and it's all because of the Emergency Preparedness Grant that made this possible.